Hey everybody, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today's webinar. My name is Shruti Ramanujam and I am going to be your presenter for this webinar for the day. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. We know that you guys usually have a packed schedule, so we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend our webinars. We really appreciate it here at Manage so today's webinar is going to be about what best practices you can follow in your messaging environments. And when I say messaging, I'm talking about three main things here. I'm talking about your Exchange servers, I'm talking about your Exchange Online environment, and I'm talking about your Skype for Business environment. So these are all tools that are going to allow you in your organization to talk to other people in your organization, to the other employees in your organization. So as an administrator, when it comes to these unified communication environments, there are certain best practices that you can follow. So that's what we are going to be looking at in today's webinar. But before that, let's talk about why exactly this topic is relevant. So one of the main reasons why this topic is relevant is that just look at today. You would have walked into your organization, and one of the main ways through which you would have spoken to everyone else in your team is through emails and texts. You do calls, you do Skype calls, audio and video calls. You use your instant messaging on Skype. You send emails, and depending on whether you use on-prem Exchange servers or Exchange Online. So these are all little tools that are going to help you communicate with the other people that work with you in your organization. And these are all like the tools that you are using, and there are certain aspects about these tools that you need to constantly monitor, that you need to audit in order to ensure that there are no problems taking place in your Exchange or Skype environment. Or to use a more broad term here, we should make sure that there are no problems that occur in your messaging environment. Because if you look at the very first task for the day, we will be looking at how you can detect service outages. So something as simple as, okay, it's not simple, but something like service outages could ruin things for all of your end users. And that is why you need to ensure that certain aspects of your communications environment is monitored, because you don't want any gap in communication to take place in your organization. So that's why this topic is relevant. Let's quickly jump into the agenda for this webinar so that you know what you can expect from the next half an hour that we will take for this webinar. So there are five main things that we are going to be looking at. So these are the five key best practices that you need to follow in order to ensure that communication is taking place properly in your messaging environment. So the very first thing that we will be looking at is how you can get real-time alerts about service outages in your organization. And by services, I'm talking about your on-prem Exchange servers services. So if there is any problem, or if any particular Exchange service stops running, you need to receive an alert so that you can go back and check exactly what went wrong in your organization. The next thing we will be looking at is it's a problem as old as time. It's about spam. So we are going to see how you can detect inbound and outbound spam in your organization. So I'm not just talking about the kind of spam emails that your employees will receive, but sometimes they can also send out emails, and these could be considered spam. A well-meaning email, if a lot of emails are being sent from a particular email address, it could be considered a spam account. It could lead to that particular mailbox being blacklisted. So in order to avoid all these, you need to keep a constant eye on the spam emails that are being sent and received in your organization. And then we will be looking at how you can audit changes to mailbox permissions. So if someone else is going to come and get full access permissions over a mailbox in your organization, you need to know that. And in order to do that, you need to constantly audit the permission changes that happen in your organization. So that's something that we will be looking at. And then we will be looking at how you can check who the top IM users are in your Skype for Business environment. So if a lot of people, if there are certain people who use instant messaging on Skype for Business quite regularly, they are going to, you need to monitor them just to see how the trends are in your organization, plan on ROI. So there are a number of reasons why you may need to keep an eye on the top IM users. We will be getting into that further into this webinar. But whatever be the reason, we are going to be looking at the top IM users in your organization. And finally, in the last task for today's webinar, we will be looking at how you can keep an eye on the emails that went undelivered in your organization. So these are the 5 tasks that we will be performing today. And before we go any further, let me just make one thing clear. This webinar is going to revolve around our product Exchange Reporter Plus. So Exchange Reporter Plus is a change auditing, monitoring, and reporting solution from Manage Engine, and you can use it for your Exchange servers, Exchange Online, and Skype for Business. So when I say best practices, I'm going to give you a nice use case for each of these 5 tasks. So I will be going into detail about every single task that I've mentioned here. I'll give you a valid use case that some of our customers have mentioned before. Like if you look at the very first task, I'm going to be talking about service outages. So I would lead with exactly what problem can happen when there are service outages in your organization. And then I'll tell you how you can use Exchange Reporter Plus in order to fix said problem in your organization. So that's how the next half an hour is going to go, fair warning. And before we jump in, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us through the chat box that you see on your screen. And we have Shiva from our support team manning the chat box. So any questions that you ask will not go unanswered. And I will also be answering your questions once I finish talking in this webinar. So any kind of question you have while I'm talking, just shoot it out through the chat box and we will get back to you immediately. And if we're not able to get back to you in real time during the webinar, we'll always email you once the webinar is over. And we will also be sending you a recording of this webinar, since many of you have asked that in the chat box. So we'll also be sending you a recording of this webinar once it's done. So you'll not have to worry about missing out on anything during this webinar. So let's jump right in. 5 tasks, and for each of these 5 tasks, I'm going to give you a use case and I am going to show you how you can use Exchange Reporter Plus in order to do the same. And the very first thing we are going to look at is how you can get real-time alerts about service outages in your organization. But first, let me paint a picture for you. So when there is a service outage in your organization, what exactly happens? So as you may already know, your on-prem Exchange servers are going to require certain services to be running for proper functioning of your mailboxes. Because if suddenly a service stops running, users will not be given access to their mailboxes. And if they are not able to access their mailboxes, they are immediately going to call your team, and you are going to get a lot of calls from a lot of angry users telling you that they are not able to access their mailboxes, which is why you need to constantly monitor the Exchange services in your organization, so that if a service suddenly stops running, you'll know. And I'm not just saying you'll just be monitoring it. Even when you're not actually in place monitoring it, you need an alert, a notification that says, hey, so this service has stopped running and you might want to take a look at it. So for all these reasons, you need to keep an eye on the service health in your organization. Exchange service health is something that needs to be monitored. If there is a service outage, you need to know immediately. And Exchange Reporter Plus actually helps you do that. It has a detailed report called the Service Health Report, which gives you insight into all the services in your organization. And I'm also going to show you how you can set up a real-time alert profile using Exchange Reporter Plus. And in order to do that, let's quickly switch to the product screen. So I already have the product open here. I just need to log in, and I will give you a quick run through, and I will show you exactly how you can use Exchange Reporter Plus in order to monitor your service health. So this is the product. As you can see, as soon as you log in, you're welcomed by the dashboard. And there's one for your on-prem Exchange servers and one for Skype for Business. So this dashboard, both the dashboards are going to have certain bar graphs, pie charts, and tables, which give you quick information about the things that you're looking for. Like if you want to know who the top instant messaging users are in your organization, you have a bar graph for it. You can look at your file transfer summary and so on. So there are 5 main tabs in Exchange Reporter Plus. The first 3, reporting, auditing, and monitoring, are for your on-prem Exchange servers. This is for Exchange Online, obviously, and then we have a whole tab dedicated to Skype for Business. So right now we are going to be looking at the monitoring tab because we are going to see how you can monitor service health using Exchange Reporter Plus. So in the left pane, there's a category called server monitoring reports, and there's a report right here called service health, and that's the report that we're looking for. This report is going to show me the results of the test service health command. So if you are familiar with PowerShell, you would know that if you wanted to check the health of your Exchange services, this is the commandlet that you would run, right? You would execute this commandlet, and that's going to help you see which services are running and which aren't running. And for those who are not that tech savvy, and I'm going to include myself in that group, you might not want to use PowerShell because something as small as a missed hyphen can create so many errors for you. And in order to avoid that, you can always look at Exchange Reporter Plus as a valid alternative, because this product shows you the name of the server, it shows you the server role, it shows you if the required services are running. If the required services are running, it would say true here, and obviously the required services are not running, which is why it says false. So which service is not running, that is listed out in the next column, and you can see which services are not running in your Exchange organization. And not only this, because let's face it, if it's just this report, you can't keep logging in every time to Exchange Reporter Plus in order to see if any particular service has stopped running. So in order to avoid that, you can also configure alert profiles so that you get real-time alerts the next time a service stops running. So in order to do that, scroll down in the left pane and you have something called alerts here. You just need to set up a new alert profile and you're all set to receive real-time notifications about any change in your organization. So you have a very green button here called new alert profile. Let's click on that and I will show you exactly what you need to do. So here's how you set up a new alert profile. So once this page opens up, give your alert a name. I'm going to call it the service health alert. You can choose to give a description, but it's not mandatory. I'm going to leave it empty for now. And then you can choose a severity level for your alert. How severe is this particular alert for you? Is it critical? Is it something that's just troubling, or does it just require your attention? But it's not that critical. So decide exactly what kind of severity level this alert should be associated with. I'm going to leave it at critical because I don't want to be hounded by a bunch of my users because the service stopped running. I need a quick alert so that I can go quickly fix whatever problem has taken place, and my end users will never know exactly what had happened because I fixed it even before they could notice that there was a problem. Because you don't want your end users to warn you of the problem, you want Exchange Reporter Plus to warn you of the problem. Select the report. So by this, what we mean is that I already showed you one report. It was called the service health report. So that's the kind of information I want an alert for. So here, when I say select report, that's the report that I need to choose. So under server monitoring, you can see it right here, server service health reports. So click on that report, click service health, click OK, and you're all set. Next, you can type the message that the alert email should be accompanied by. You can use macros for this. So the kind of information that I want from the alert message is this. I want to know which server the alert is talking about. I want to know which services are not running, and I want to know the time at which this alert was generated. So here's how you would type the message. In the server, I want the server name to be entered here, so I will choose the server macro. The following services are not running. Put a colon, and I wanted to list out all the services that are not running. And then I want to tell me the time. So time equals generated time. So that's it. So let me interpret this for you. So this message, when I do end up getting it, it's going to tell me that in this particular server, these following services are not running anymore, and this was the time at which it was generated. So that's how this works out. So you can use macros. There are a number of other macros that you can use. You can also add the macro for whether all the required services are running or not. You can get the server role to be mentioned and so on. Make use of macros, give yourself an alert message, and if you want you can also, so this alert message is basically to be generated in the product. And if you want an email notification, just click the email notification checkbox. You can enter as many email addresses as you want in here, put a subject, and as long as you've configured a mail server, you will receive an email notification. So I've told you the steps, but for now I'm going to forego the email notification part. I can also give advanced settings, as in I can filter this based on the server role. So I can do this just for the mailbox server role servers, or I can do it just based on whether the required services are running or not. Like if I want an alert just when the required services are not running, I can choose this and enter false, right? Because whenever the required services are not running, I will receive these alerts. So something like that. They just choose one of these and you're going to be all set. And then all you need to do is click create. Just quickly review the kind of alert profile that you have created. Click create. The alert profile is going to be created, and the next time a particular service stops running, I'm going to receive an alert message. And had I clicked the email notification checkbox and given an email address, I would also receive an email that says, hey, so this service is not running and maybe you want to check up on it, and I can go check up on it. So I'm sure you can see how this would be helpful in real life, in your environment, not just in this test environment, because the next time a service stops running, you are immediately going to be notified by Exchange Reporter Plus, and you are not going to be notified by your end users complaining that they are not able to access their mailboxes. So that's how this works. And what are we going to look at next? The next task that we are going to be performing today has to do with your spam emails. We are going to see how you can detect inbound and outbound spam in your organization. But before that, let's look at some statistics when it comes to spam. And these are all things that I looked up on a site called spamlaws.com, and they are quite insightful when it comes to spam messages worldwide. So I recommend that you check it out just to see how prevalent spam emails are in today's world. So one thing that I saw was that spam accounts for 45% of all the emails sent worldwide. Isn't that quite shocking? Because of all the emails that are sent, there's just 55% that are legitimate content, and the remaining 45% is all spam. It's all going to be something that is not legitimate. It's probably fraudulent, and it's definitely not something very honest or something that has any integrity. And there are around 14.5 billion spam emails that are sent every day. And when you read this, when you see statistics such as this, you can understand how easy it is for something as simple as a spam email to throw open the network's doors, your network's doors, to attackers. So this is why you need to be more vigilant when it comes to spam emails. And there are a lot of problems that spam can cause. Like if you look at inbound spam, that is the spam that your employees are going to receive. So they mostly toe the line of advertisements. They are mostly going to be marketing something to you, advertising something to you, and this is going to cause mailbox clutter. So that is one of your primary problems, because especially if you are depending just on your on-prem Exchange servers, size storage is going to be a problem. So it can cause mailbox clutter, but that is the least of your worries when it comes to spam. Some spam emails are actually pretty deceptive, and you don't want a security attack to happen because of your spam emails. So in order to avoid all this, you need to keep an eye on the different kind of spam emails that are being sent and received in your organization. And yes, I said sent to. So say you are running an email campaign and you're sending a lot of email messages. You don't want your organization to be blacklisted just because you're sending a lot of email messages. You don't want to be classified as a spam account. You actually want a healthy mailbox account, a healthy sender address. And in order to avoid all these problems, you need to keep an eye on the kind of spam emails that go forth and happen in your organization. which is why you need certain best practices when it comes to spam emails. And the very first best practice that I can give you right now is that you should educate your users about the types of spam emails that are out there. Tell your users exactly what can happen if they click on a spam email. And there are, simple things that everyone knows but no one talks about much. Like when you try to unsubscribe from a spam email, it can actually subscribe you to more spam links. Or if you reply to a spam email, spam is usually just sent to figure out if people are legitimate receivers or not. And once you reply and show them that there is a human behind this recipient mailbox, they are going to send you all the more, they're going to be all the more confident now, and they are going to be sending you a lot of spam messages. So educate your users about spam messages. Tell them what phishing is. Tell them what spear phishing is, especially in today's scenario where a lot of security attacks happen. You need to be vigilant about any phishing activity that takes place, which is why you have the which is why you need to educate your users about the type of spam emails. Tell your users what kind of security threats can happen when they open these emails. And this is not just about your users. As an administrator, the ball is also in your court. You need to make sure that spam filters are in place in your organization. And you can also use third-party tools such as Exchange Reporter Plus, which help you detect spam very easily in your organization. The Exchange Reporter Plus actually helps you keep an eye on both inbound and outbound spam in your organization. You can get details about users who receive the most spam and what kind of spam emails are being sent and received, when were they sent or received, and so on. So instead of talking about this, let me just show it to you. I'm going to switch to the product screen, and let me show this to you under Exchange Online. So if you use Exchange Online if you have an Exchange Online environment, if spam messages are being sent or received in your organization, you need to know. So under Exchange Online, there's a subcategory called Mail Traffic Reports, and under Mail Traffic Reports, there's one particular report called Spam Detections. So that's the report that we are going to be looking at now, because this report is going to help you detect the spam messages that are happening in your organization. So it shows you when the spam email was received. It shows you who the sender of the email was, who was the recipient, what was the subject of the message, what was the size of the message, was any action performed. Like if the user had replied to this message, this column would have a value. What was the domain and what was the direction? Was it inbound or outbound? So these are all the kind of information that you can get using Exchange Reporter Plus. So you can very easily find out what the spam message was, when was it sent, what was the subject of the message, who sent it, who received it, and so on. So you can get all this information with very few clicks using Exchange Reporter Plus. So that's the second task for the day. Let's quickly move on to the next thing that we will be looking at today, which has everything to do with mailbox permission changes. So before that, let me give you a scenario here, or it's not a scenario, but it's more it's things that we already know but we don't dedicate much time to. So as I mentioned when I first started this webinar, think of all the emails that you have sent today. Most of your communication with your peers in your organization is through email. So you're going to be sending a lot of emails, and at our level, it's going to be normal emails, work related emails. But think of the higher executives in your organization. Think of the C-suite in your organization. Your CEO is not just going to be sending messages that says, hey, we have a meeting at 3 p.m. He's going to be sending confidential information. He's going to be sending business critical information. So you need to make sure that your CEO's confidential data is not being leaked in any way to outsiders. You need to make sure that this classified data stays classified, and unwanted people don't generally gain access to this business critical information. Because if unauthorized users do have access to this mailbox content, they can misuse it. They can lead to your organization losing out on an important deal. So at the end of the day, you need to make sure that it's just owners and trusted delegates who have access to important mailboxes in your organization. So I said scenario. There are 3 scenarios that I'm going to give you where you would come to realize that auditing mailbox permission changes is important. So the first one is more an organizational thing, and it doesn't have any much to do with security. If you have multiple administrators in your environment, you would have faced this before. Because say there are some 3 or 4 admins in your IT infrastructure team, and one administrator has created a small change. The other administrator is trying to troubleshoot a problem. He wants to know who fixed or who created a change initially, and you just send a lot of emails back and forth before you figure out who exactly made the change. So troubleshooting can be a little difficult when you have a multiple administrator environment, and this is all the more the case if you do not have proper documentation in your organization. And documentation is actually really important, and I know that everyone says this quite often, but we never actually end up doing it. So yeah, multiple administrator environments, permission changes is something that you need to keep an eye on. And it's not just permission changes, it's also your different server configuration settings, such as changes to your circular logging setting or hub transport or like anything to do with your servers, and not just permission changes. The next thing that we are going to, next scenario that we are going to look at has to do with rogue users. So say there's some person in your organization who's a little disgruntled, and they are not, say they're quitting, or maybe they're just going to leak information to outsiders. So this kind of rogue user can mess up permissions for you in your organization, and you do not want classified information to be leaked just because one user was a little frustrated with your organization, and you do not want your classified information to get into the hands of your competitors. It's going to create a lot of problems. It's going to be a compliance issue for you. It's going to be it's going to like make you lose out on your market share because your competitor now has this classified information in their hands. So these are all the reasons why you need to audit your mailbox permission changes, because you do not want a rogue user to dip their hand into a cookie jar where it doesn't belong. The final scenario that I'm going to mention might sound a little silly, but it's actually something that a lot of people generally talk about. This has everything to do with names. So let's say you have a senior employee in your organization whose name is Ram, R-A-M. And then there's a new hire in your organization whose name is also Ram, but it's spelled R-A-A-M. And because of this small this extra A in a name, the new hire could gain access to important organizational data when it was the senior Ram who was supposed to get this, who was supposed to gain access to this particular data. So administrators, you always need to pay close attention to names while you are changing permissions over mailboxes. So something as simple as this can cause problems. So if this new hire Ram is actually a person with a lot of integrity, they would point out that they have access to this information. But say they don't, and say this new intern is the person who is the rogue user in your organization, and now they have access to classified data. Think of the problems that can happen in your organization because this user has access. It sounds a little scary, right? Which is why you need to pay close attention to names when you are granting permission changes. So there are a few best practices that you can follow when it comes to permission changes in your organization. And the very first thing has to do with documentation. I know we do talk a lot about documentation, but documentation is actually really important, especially if you have a multiple administrator environment. Think of all the positive changes documentation can bring about for you. Once you record every change that's happening in your organization, troubleshooting is going to become so much easier. So documentation is really important. You also need to pay close attention to usernames because you don't want the wrong RAM to gain access to classified business data. You can also use a third-party tool such as Exchange Reporter Plus. I'm going to get into this right now. You can use Exchange Reporter Plus in order to keep an eye on permission changes in your organization, because Exchange Reporter Plus is going to provide audit reports which help you audit permission changes in real time. And you can also set up alert profiles so that you receive real-time alerts when a permission change happens in your organization. So let me switch to the product screen and show you exactly how you can audit permission changes using Exchange Reporter Plus. The tab that we are looking for is auditing. So Exchange Reporter Plus allows real-time auditing of various aspects of your Exchange environment, and we allow auditing of both your on-prem Exchange servers and your Exchange Online environment. Right now, the report that we are looking for is called overall mailbox permission changes. It's going to show me any permission change that has happened in this test organization, and anything. It doesn't restrict based on the type of permission changes. Any full access, send as, read permission, anything that's been changed is going to be shown here in this particular report. So it shows me which user brought about the change, in which mailbox was the permission change taking place on. It shows you what the name of the server is, the time at which the permission change happened, which attribute was modified, any remarks about what access control entries were added or removed. You have the new value and the old value. So if you look at the old value for this very first entry, these are all the access control entries that are present here. So you can take a look at all these. Close the window, go to new value and see exactly what changes have taken place. And then you will know if any unwanted or unauthorized permission change has taken place. You can just take a quick look at this list and you will know if any rogue user has gained access to this mailbox. And in addition to just looking at this report, you can also once again go to alerts and set up a new alert profile so that you receive an instant notification when a permission change happens in your organization. Go to new alert profile and that's it. Just it's the usual thing. It's like how I showed you for service outages in the beginning of today's webinar. So you can just say mailbox permission changes alert, give a description. It's once again critical for me, so I'm going to leave the severity level at critical. Select the name of the report. So just click the plus button, click the name of the report, mailbox permission changes, and I'm going to do this for overall mailbox permission changes. Click OK. Enter the message, use the macros that are present here. So you can get the macros to tell you which user. Caller username is basically the user who brought about the mailbox permission change over your organization's mailboxes. So you can get it to tell you which user changed the permissions. You can get it to tell you which mailbox did this permission change happen over, the email address, any remarks, and so on. So once you're done, you can just click create and the alert profile is going to be created in your organization. So the next time a particular permission change happens in your organization, you are going to receive an instant alert about it. And I'm sure you can see how beneficial this would be in a real-time exchange environment. The next task that we are going to do today has to do with Skype for Business. So I said this webinar will be for all your messaging environments. And when you say unified communications, of course, Skype for Business is a part of it. And Skype for Business has actually made things really easy for us. You can have a lot of conferences, be it dial-in conferencing or web conferencing. You can send text messages to the employees in your organization, and you can have a lot of audio and video calls. You can share files. So it obviously has a lot of benefits. And when it comes to instant messaging, it's again a plus. It was introduced quite recently where users can text each other through Skype. And that is actually really beneficial. But as an administrator, you need to keep an eye on the kind of IMs that are being exchanged in your organization. You need to see who is sending the most IMs. Like for whatever reason, it could be something as simple as just checking on how much time people are spending on IMs. So for all these reasons, you need to keep an eye on how IMs are being used in your organization. And Exchange Report Plus helps you do just that. I already showed you the detailed dashboard we have for Skype for Business. I show it to you once again as soon as I switch to the product screen. And then I'll show you how you can get details about all the instant messages that users send and receive in your organization. Let me switch to the product screen. I'll show you the dashboard initially just to see how Exchange Reporter Plus helps you keep an eye on Skype for Business. So this is the dashboard. It's going to give you a quick snapshot about the important information you may require from your Skype environment. So you can see which users make the most number of calls, which users have the most IM sessions. So you can see who's like wasting too much time on their instant messages. You can see which users transfer files internally and which users transfer files externally in your organization. You can get a detailed summary about the calls, like the total IM sessions that have happened. You can get details about total file transfers and so on. So this is the detailed dashboard. And now I've clicked on Skype for Business to show you the report, which helps you keep an eye on the top IM sessions in your organization. So these are all the kind of categories for Skype that we help you report on. And the subcategory that we are looking for is instant messaging. And the report that we're looking for is top IM users. This report is going to give me quick information about the top instant messaging sessions in my organization. It shows me the name of the user, it shows me the user's URL, it shows me the total IM sessions that the user has had, it shows me the total duration, how much time, exactly how much time has this user spent on all of their IM sessions. And then it shows me what their average IM duration is, how much time do they spend on an average on an IM session. So these are all the things that this report shows. This is a test setup, so obviously there are just 3 entries here, but I'm sure you can picture exactly how long this would be in your organization. So in addition to just this report, it also gives you a graph at the top of the screen, which shows you the top IM users and the number of sessions that these IM users have had in your organization. So I'm sure this is going to be pretty helpful to you if you use Skype for Business for conferencing in your organization. The final task that we are going to be performing today has everything to do with undelivered emails. And why do you need to monitor undelivered emails? So this all comes back to what vertical your organization falls under. So let's say you work in the education sector, and if you are an administrator for a company that works in the education sector, you must be familiar with being asked to do this. A particular student could be claiming that they did not receive their class schedule, or they could claim that they did not receive their mark sheets after the exam was done. So in such a situation, you may be asked to find out if the email really was undelivered, or if this person is actually claiming that they just didn't receive it. Another vertical that would fit better here is the finance sector, because there could be someone who got a loan and they received an important email asking about the loan, and they could be claiming that they did not receive this important bank statement. As an administrator, you need to figure out if the email actually was undelivered or if this person is just claiming so for cross checking, you can use Exchange Reporter Plus, which helps you monitor all the emails that were not delivered in your organization. And this tool is also going to help you detect undelivered emails based on invalid sender addresses, I mean recipient addresses, based on the size of attachments in the email and so on. So let me just switch to the product screen and I will show you how exactly you can do this using Exchange Reporter Plus. So click on the reporting tab, and in reporting, because this has everything to do with emails, the subcategory that we're looking for is email traffic. Scroll down in email traffic and you have a bunch of undelivered emails report right here. So you can get basic information, a quick summary of all the undelivered emails in your organization. You can go a little bit in detail and see which emails were not delivered because of invalid addresses. You can see which emails were not delivered because of size, and you can also compare the delivered emails with the undelivered emails in your organization so that you understand the ratio, the difference between delivered and undelivered emails in your organization. So the report that I'm looking for is undelivered emails. And this report is going to show me who sent the email, who received the email. It shows me the subject of the email message. It shows me the size of the message. Why exactly was this not delivered? It's because there was a bad destination mailbox address. So the reason for failure of delivery is also mentioned, and the possible causes are also listed here. So you can take a look at any of these. Like if it says bad destination mailbox address, it could be because the email address was not entered correctly. It could be because the mailbox was moved and Office Outlook cache on the sender's computer is not currently updated. So it could be any of these reasons. So the main reason is listed here and the possible causes for this reason is listed out here in this final column. So in this way, depending on which vertical you work for, you can see exactly which emails were not delivered in your organization and why exactly were they not delivered in your organization. So that's how Exchange Reporter Plus helps you out with email traffic. And that's it. That was the last topic for today's webinar. And just as I promised, we have taken just about half an hour and maybe an extra 5 minutes to finish this webinar. So let's have a quick recap about exactly what we saw. We saw how you can use Exchange Reporter Plus to do all these things. We saw how you can get instant notifications about any kind of service outage in your on-prem Exchange servers. We saw how you can keep an eye on spam emails in your organization. We saw how you can audit mailbox permission changes in order to ensure that rogue users don't just gain access to business critical information in your organization. We saw how you can get details about the top instant messaging users in your organization. And finally, we saw how you can get a quick snapshot about all the undelivered emails in your organization. So if you have people who are claiming that they did not receive a particular email, you can use Exchange Reporter Plus in order to prove them otherwise. So that's how Exchange Reporter Plus works. So we just saw 5 small things about Exchange Reporter Plus. But if you have a question about anything that the product can do, if you want to find out if we have a particular feature available, you can always reach out to us and we will let you know. My email address is right here. It's shruti@manageengine.com. And of course, some of you have been asking questions through the chat box, and we have been responding to your questions. So you can always add in to the questions that the others are asking, and we will get back to you immediately. You can also send me an email at shruti@manageengine.com, and I will get back to you. If you want a personalized demo, if there are certain things in your organization that you want a tool for and you're not sure how exactly Exchange Reporter Plus would fit, you can always reach out to me. I can set up a demo for you. You can tell us exactly what your requirements are, and we'll give you a demo of Exchange Reporter Plus to suit your needs, and show you how this tool answers all the requirements that you may have. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at all, and we are right here to get back to you. And if you are already using Exchange Reporter Plus, we can, of course, if you have any feature suggestions, we are more than willing to add those features to our products. And that's it. I hope you learned something of value from today's webinar. So thank you very much for that. If you'd like us to cover any particular topic in the subsequent webinars, do let me know. You can also use the chat box that you see on your screen in order to let us know exactly how exactly how we can make this webinar better for you. So you can do this either by emailing me, use the chat box, use the feedback form. Just let us know how we can improve the webinar experience for more attendees such as yourself. So thank you very much for spending this half an hour with us today. We really appreciate it here at Manage Engine. And thank you very much. I hope you have a great day today.